Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of MSO's 13th Annual Educational Seminar. Thank you for attending. At this time, we would like to thank our generous sponsors who make our events possible. They're on the screen. We especially wish to thank our annual sponsors who bring us our ed seminars, webinars, and golf outings. The sponsors are listed in the program as well, which you would have received in the email, and we'll also put a link in the chat. Of course, we need to thank our incredible MSO team who works so hard to put these seminars together, from finding presenters and topics to getting sponsors and creating all the marketing and program materials. It takes a true team. Mary Beagle created marketing materials and constant contact emails and worked on the sponsors. Michael McNamara handles the CE filings and credit banking. And of course, our CEO, Jan Seitz, who loves to send out countless personal emails. And thanks to Results Advertising for helping with the program. Before we start, a few housekeeping rules. Attendees will be on mute. Video is turned off except for hosts and presenters. Questions should be posted in the chat or questions and answer. We will answer them as time permits. Hosts and presenters must use the chat feature to ask questions. You'll see on the screen and in your program guide the antitrust compliance policy and discussion guidelines. We will not be discussing any confidential information about companies today. And next is our disclaimer. This is meant as education and discussion purposes and not legal advice and not insurance advice. If you want CE, make sure you fill out all the polls. There will be at least 2 per session. The sessions will be recorded and should be available on our website and our new YouTube channel shortly after the seminars. Copies of the PowerPoint presentations are also available. The sessions have been approved for 2 continuing ed credits in Connecticut, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Vermont, New Hampshire, and 1 in New Jersey. If you need CE, as I said, please answer the polling questions. If you have questions, please put it in the chat or email me at squimby@msonet.com if you have any problems with the polls. If you do not provide your state license number and IPR number, you may also not be eligible for credits. Our first topic today is ransomware and you, not perfect together. Jan?
Yep. I want to introduce Sue because she's going to be our expert today to do this presentation. And I want to say just a couple words about Sue. She's been at MSO for over 30 years and been a great employee and is now our VP of Media and many other things. She's a terrific product person and she is a fabulous trainer, as I'm sure everybody on this webinar knows. But I want to thank her personally for taking this on and all the good work that she does. So without further ado, Sue Quimby.
Thank you, Jan. Find our little presentation. And I am by no means an expert on cyber insurance, but hopefully we'll all learn something today. We had a little glitch this morning that was interesting. There was apparently a attack on Citrix, which happens to be our provider. So we had a bit of an issue with that, but thankfully we are good to go. A little bit about MSO for those of you who don't know who we are. We are a service bureau. We've been providing property and casualty, loss cost, rules and forms for over 75 years, all lines of business, and we are currently licensed in all 50 states with programs in most of the states. We are still working on our rollout. One of our missions is to offer continuing education in the form of articles. There's over 200, about 200 on our website, in our library. We offer webinars, our continuing educational seminars. We're expanding our schools. We're in 13 states. We will be adding to additional states in the very near future. And we've got our brand new YouTube channel that you should be sure to look at. Let's talk a little bit about ransomware. Basically, what ransomware does is it's a malware that infects and encrypts a victim's files. So it encrypts the files and you can't get in there. Your system, various things happen. They may steal your data. They may just be hiding in there in your system for a while and stealing things or locking things up. And you may not even know that you've been attacked by ransomware at first. It may take a month even to know whether you've been attacked. What makes it a ransomware is that they ask for payment for the key to unlock the files. So they say, if you give us $1 million, we will give you the key to unlock your files, allegedly. Often the payments are requested in cryptocurrency. Why would you have it in cryptocurrency? Well, the short answer is you can't trace that. Once it's gone, and you don't really have a way of finding it. There are many different types of ransomware. These are just a few of them: locker ransomware, crypto ransomware, distributed denial of service. Basically what that does is locks up your system so you can't even get into it. You can't access your files, you can't access your emails, you can't access your system. If you've got a website where you're trying to sell product, that may greatly impact your ability to do business. Exfiltration and leakware, they're stealing information. They're going in and they're able to take your customer files or take your information. I'm sure that many of us on this call have received emails or letters from companies saying, oh, your data and information may have been compromised. And here's what's going to happen. Screen lockers, another one, and scareware. Who is at risk for ransomware? In short, everyone. Ransomware is everywhere. We see it all the time. If you just look on the news and you just Google ransomware, you get all the different kinds and all the different versions. The Move It was a big one recently, and a lot of them come from Russia, a lot of them come from China. It's big business now. You have even like different departments that one department will be the ones that attack the system and get the personal information. And then somebody else will go into the system and either steal the information or encrypt it so that you can't get into it, or something else. And then you've got another division that will sell that information to other people. So it's a whole operation. It's very sophisticated. And those of us who have received phishing emails can attest to that some of them are very realistic. When you get an email from your bank that says, oh, we need your password, or you've been compromised, or an email from Amazon saying, oh, your payment didn't go through, your initial reaction is to say, oh, wait, I've got to fix this. Well, that's the wrong thing to do, because that's when they get you and they infect your system and all hell breaks loose. And even smart people have fallen victim to these things, because just in a moment of weakness, you say, oh, I need to fix this. And it doesn't go well. Many attacks are on small businesses. So they're not necessarily going after the multi-million-dollar companies. They're going after the smaller businesses, probably because they have more vulnerabilities. They may not have the sophisticated software and protection and security systems that some of the larger companies may have. It's estimated that about 60% of claims are due to human error. As I mentioned before, clicking on that phishing email, going to a bad website, ignoring the fact that you're getting a warning system from your computer. What's really scary is that attacks have increased 71% in a year. They're all the time. They're constantly out there trying to attack your systems. And it's not just businesses, it's all of us personally as well. Phishing emails are most common. I'm sure everyone on the call has probably had a phishing email, at least one in the past day. I had one last night about we've got an important email for you. No, thank you. It's called social engineering. They're trying to trap you by getting you to click on something that will cause you to have a problem. How about the ones where they spoof your boss's email and says, oh, we need you to send a payment to this entity. And it wasn't the boss that's getting the money, it's somebody else that is not entitled to it. Or there's the malware attachments we talked about before, when you click on it and it messes up your computer. Visiting an infected website, click in something and they say, oh, because you look at it and sometimes it's really, really close to what the real website was. If you go into type the name or misspell something, you can end up in trouble. As I said before, they're getting very, very sophisticated. And now with artificial intelligence, it's going to be even worse because they can make these things look real and seem real, and they've got nothing better to do. The motivation in 95% is financial. They want money. They want a quick payment. They're not necessarily looking to steal your system or steal your information and disable your operation. They just want money and they want to get out. Of course, some of them will steal the information and then sell it to somebody else. And that's another way that they get money. Because it's interesting. Apparently, the trend is now that they're just taking the ransomware and they're not even encrypting the files anymore. They're just taking the ransomware and leaving the systems alone. But that doesn't necessarily happen all the times. It's a threat to your IT system. You've got bad actors infiltrating in your system. You don't know if they're still there even after you pay the ransomware. And sometimes they are. Just because they say they're going to leave your system clean doesn't mean they do. And you may have to go and buy a whole new system and buy new computers. As I mentioned before, the demand message says, pay us this much money by such and such a time, or we will destroy your information, or we will publish your information. If you've got sensitive information, if you're a health insurance provider or a health carrier or an insurance coverage, and you've got personal information about companies and people, you don't want that spread all over because that's going to really kill your reputation, won't it? So they often want Bitcoin or crypto. As I mentioned before, that's because it's untraceable. You send it off and you're not going to see it again. And you're not going to know who's got it. Differences between different types of ransomware is often the attack methods. The encryption of data, so you'll need a key to unlock your data. It's like crypto ransomware. Theft of data, where they're taking all these files, they're taking social security numbers, they're taking bank account numbers, they're taking all kinds of information that they shouldn't have. It's your exfiltration and leakware. Or the distributed denial of service. Your system is blocked. You can't get in. You can't operate. You can't send emails. You can't find your files. Or the screen locker just locks up your screen. There have been a few ransomware questions recently. Some ransomware examples. The Royal Mail, which is the United Kingdom's largest shipping service, was completely shut down because of the ransomware. The city of Dallas is still recovering from the ransomware that happened to them in the spring. I believe it was the Move It. All their systems, the police couldn't operate. The library, you couldn't return books. Everything in the city was shut down because of the ransomware. And I think they did have insurance. I think they had $10.4 million worth, paid for insurance, but they also had $8.5 million set aside to recover from the ransomware attack. And it's still going on. At Tampa General Hospital, we got a letter from them recently because my husband had surgery there years ago and they were hacked. But the thing about Tampa General is that they were watching out. They were monitoring their systems. So they were proactively able to block the encryption. So their loss and damage was a lot less than, say, the city of Dallas, which was completely shut down. So being proactive, having security measures, checking your systems, monitoring your systems, installing patches, updating your software. Don't ignore those up when they say there's a new security or there's a new update for your system, because many times it's because there's an attack and a threat. Can you prevent ransomware or at least reduce it? Some best practices include keeping your systems updated and using patches, which I just mentioned. That's one of the key areas. Having antivirus software, because that can pick up a lot of these entities that are constantly trying to attack us. These are people that are doing this 24/7. They're trying to get into things, and they find out where the vulnerabilities are. They find out what companies have those, and a lot of times it's a computer program or a system that's very widespread, and lots of people all over the world will get attacked at the same time. Back up your programs. This is a good idea anyway. If you have a system crash, like many of us have had, and you don't have a backup, it's a problem. And if you are attacked by ransomware, if you've got a backup system and a backup program, well, then you can still have access to your files and your information. You're not as dependent upon the ransom company, the extortion company, to get back your information and your data. Multi-factor authentication. This is a big one. And I know it's a pain in the neck, because every time you want to sign in somewhere, you have to make sure you're signed in on your phone or you're signed in someplace else, and you just spin around 3 times and give them the right numbers. But this really helps, because even if they've gotten your password or your login information or your admin information, they still is the second step that it's required for them to be able to access your system, and it stops a lot of them. It's interesting to note that text messages are less safe than the authenticator or mobile apps that you have. Talked before about updated software and patches, full data backups on-site and off, email protocols such as SPF, determining what servers emails can come from. Make sure your remote access is secure. Make sure the systems that you're using or the places you're going, don't be sitting in public areas on unsecured Wi-Fi with doing sensitive information. It's just, you're open to a problem. Password managers. You can have a password manager that encrypts and keeps all of your system information.
Apologies for the interruption, Sue. 2 of our participants missed the poll, so I relaunched it.
Okay.
Give them just a few more seconds and then we'll end it. But they must be paying good attention to your presentation, because
You can encrypt your data. You can have the system set up so that your data is encrypted, so other people, even if they do get into your system, can't access what you have. Scanning for threats and vulnerabilities. All of us have virus protection that does regular scans to say, okay, there's a problem, or there's an issue here. But if you don't do the scans, if you say, oh, put it off, you're leaving yourself open to problems. Security awareness training. How many of you have been involved in some kind of training? You have a system that says we're going to talk about cybersecurity. We're going to talk about what you should and shouldn't do. Do you have tests? A lot of companies will send out fake emails to see if their employees will click on them as a test, to see how secure their system is, to see how much their employees are paying attention. Does your company do that? And nowadays, in order to get insurance, you may have to. That may be one of the requirements to get the insurance, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Cyber insurance is great to have, but it doesn't always cover what you want, and it may not be enough. And be sure to report threats. Some states, this is a requirement. It doesn't matter how big the threat was, that you may have to report all threats. So one of the impacts on the insurance industry is that they've tightened down their eligibility requirements because of the skyrocketing losses. As I said before, you've got 71% increase in a year, and the claims payments and the demands just keep going up. So insurance companies have stepped back and said, oh, well, as insurers, our goal is to assess our risks and charge a premium that's going to match our risks. We're not in the business to lose money, obviously. So they've changed their regulations, they've changed their requirements. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Talked about companies too, talking about the need to have security awareness training. And so ransomware insurance is typically a supplement in a cyber policy. You can get standalones. Everybody's different. No two companies are the same, obviously. But the requirements for coverage have been increasing since 2020, which is when the claims started multiplying immensely. Multi-factor authentication is required in almost every case now. The insurance company won't write your policy if you don't have multi-factor authentication. This just makes it too easy for the bad actors to get into your system. Service account protection. These are all your systems. Maybe you have computer systems that aren't really managed by humans, that they're running off of each other. And those are sometimes a little more vulnerable because they may not be involved in the password protection policy. They may not be, if you're rotating passwords regularly, these automated systems may not be impacted by that. So it's important that these be audited and be maintained, that their systems aren't being hacked by bad actors. Supplemental applications. Nearly every company is now requiring a supplemental application. And what these supplemental applications are is asking, what are your systems? What do you do to protect against cyber risks? What are your trainings? What are your multi-factor authentication systems? Are your passwords managed? Are they required to be changed regularly? Some of the conditions now, too, is they are putting supplements on coverages such as ransomware or co-insurance. You may have to, the insured may have to pay a percentage of the loss. And these are all done as incentives for companies to step up their game, to increase their protection. Because the goal is to avoid these payments and to avoid these claims, isn't it? The coverages that may be found in a ransomware insurance policy include the ransom and extortion, which obviously is the payment that the bad actors are looking for in order to get your system back, to get your data back, to get access to your system. Damage repairs and cleanup, because when they come in and access your system, they can do irreparable damage to things. They can destroy your software, destroy your records. You may need to clean up your files and extract all of the malware and extract the viruses. Bricking coverage is replacement coverage for computers and systems that can't be repaired or recovered after a ransomware attack. Or data destruction. They delete all your data and destroy it. You're going to need to spend money to bring it back, unless, of course, you do have appropriate backup systems. Some of the other coverages that may be needed the cost of hiring experts and negotiators. There are firms out there that are expert in tracking the malware, tracking the bad actors, or in negotiating the settlements and the payments for the ransom. So this is a coverage that can be made available. Business interruption. This is certainly a key area, because if your system is down, you're not able to operate, you're losing money, aren't you? Especially if it happens during a busy time. If you're running a company that's selling Christmas gift bags and they hit you on November 24th, your potential is to lose quite a bit of business and a lot of downtime while you're trying to recover this. As I mentioned before, the city of Dallas is still trying to recover, and their ransomware attack was back in May. So can you imagine? Some businesses won't survive if their businesses are down for that period of time. So it is serious. Corvus is a provider of cyber coverage. Actually, they just got bought by Travelers yesterday. But this is what they kind of offer on their systems. Their first-party coverages, they offer business interruption or contingent business interruption. What if one of your service providers gets hacked? One of your people that does things for you. If you look at the Target attack a few years ago, their system was infiltrated because their heating and ventilation company was not secure, and the attackers got in through that. So the contingent, not continent, but business interruption is for when you're either your supplier or your recipient, your client has an interruption that affects your business. The first party coverages are digital asset destruction. As we said before, they destroy your records, they're gone. You can't get them back because you didn't have the proper backups. Data retrieval, it may cost money and time to be able to go in and bring back that information. I mean, restoring your system to where it should be. All these things take time and money. System failure. You've got a complete crash. You can't recover it. That's certainly going to be expensive, isn't it? Cyber extortion and ransomware. The payment to be able to get your system back. As we said before, that doesn't mean you're going to get your system back. It doesn't mean your data isn't still infected or your systems aren't still infected. And it doesn't mean they're not going to attack you again. Breach response and remediation expenses. We learned yesterday that in Steve's presentation, that the faster you can respond to these incidents, the more successful you'll be. And you can see also that the longer it takes somebody to respond, the ransom demand may increase because of the time frame. So, as I said before, rapid response and backups are key. Not all cyber coverages have ransomware coverage. They say about 55% of companies have cyber, but 30% of that, 7% of them have no ransomware coverage. So if you don't have ransomware coverage, well, then you're not going to have what you need. Social engineering and cyber crime. When we talked before about the phishing emails that everybody gets, the malware that's on the attachments, and all the things that we shouldn't do. And hopefully we're all learning what not to do, but we're all getting tricked. Some of the third-party coverages that are available: network security and privacy liability. As we've talked about before, if you've got people's private information, their personally identifiable information, their social security numbers, their bank account numbers, their credit card numbers, all that information, if that gets out, you could potentially face a large lawsuit for that. Regulatory investigations. You know, the regulators are going to come in and say, okay, what happened here? And assess fines and penalties. And those could be covered under your policy. Media liability. bad reputation, damages to your reputation, damages PR, PCI DSS assessment expenses. If you're accepting credit cards, payment card industry data security standard. If you're accepting credit cards and payments like that, you may have their information in your system. And if that gets stolen, there are requirements for that. Some other coverages. We talked before about bricking. Bricking coverage is just buying new equipment. Invoice manipulation. So what if they get into your system and start out sending out false invoices to your clients? And those clients are paying them thinking they're coming from you, and really the payment is going to the bad actor. They're going to come back after you and say, hey, we thought it was from you, your email, and they're going to expect to be reimbursed. Forensic accounting coverage, going in and trying to figure out where the money went, or who got the money, or what's missing. It can be expensive. Bodily injury. There could be bodily injury for some, or perceived bodily injury. Criminal reward coverage. Maybe you're going to have a reward or for helping to find the bad actors and who's putting out the ransomware. Or preventative shutdown. Your system is attacked and you shut everything down in order to avoid it spreading to the rest of your system. That's going to be a cost to you because your system is going to be down for an indeterminable amount of time, and this coverage is going to help reimburse you for that. Some pros and cons of ransom coverage. Obviously, it gives you payment for your ransom demands. It helps with your recovery costs, getting your systems and your operations back to where they should be, and can help with your business interruption costs. The cons, as we've mentioned before, payment of the ransom does not guarantee your data recovery or that your system is clean. They can come back in and leave a back door, even though you've paid all this money. So that's kind of why some of the trends are to not pay ransoms, because there's no guarantee. And now the hackers are so sophisticated, they can find out what kind of cyber insurance somebody has. They know what vulnerabilities there are. They can tailor their demand for ransom and extortion based on what type of insurance coverage you have. Sometimes feel like there's no end to it, is there? As I've mentioned before, there have been a record high claims in the first half of 2023. The record high severity. Small to medium business companies are a key target of ransomware attacks. The average insurance claim for a small to medium company was $345. Incident costs were $352,000. So this is not cheap. The frequency was up 27%. The average ransom was $247,000, and the average demand was $1.62 million. I don't really have $1.62 million laying around that I can just pay out to somebody to get my information back. There's a 47% increase over the second half of 2022 and a 74% increase over the prior year. So this is not going away. It's just getting worse. They're getting more sophisticated and they're attacking 24/7. This is their job, to come and attack our systems. Find it from Coalition, who is also another insurance carrier that does cyber insurance. And you can see the trends from 2021, the first half and second half of the year. And if you look at the first half of 2023, $365,000. So some takeaways as brokers and agents, what can you do to help your clients, or actually to help yourself, because you're going to need this coverage as well. Check your policy terms. As we discussed before, they are changing. Coverages and conditions are changing because of the increased frequency and severity of all these claims. So check, what coinsurance are they asking for? How much are you going to have to pay out? What are your supplements? Is there a supplement for the ransomware coverage? It may not be the full policy limit. What are the other conditions that are being required? Is there a supplemental application that you have to fill out? Are there other security practices that the company is now requiring? Is there a way to modify the coinsurance and supplements based on the company's participation in security training and multi-factor authentication and other methods of providing security? All things that are coming up new. So the renewal policy may be different than the policy you had before. As I mentioned before, AIG in the beginning of the year instituted coinsurance, 50%. So the 50% of the claim is paid by the client and 50% of the claim is paid for by the company. So, but you can look for carriers too that may work with your clients. It may work with them as far as instituting a security training, may offer that training, may offer protocols and other ways to reduce their risk and increase their insurance coverage. So you can look for clients that may be willing to work with your insureds. Story issues. Obviously, entities like the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, the NAIC, are looking at this because the financial industry and the financial sectors were big targets for these attackers. And part of the problem is if attackers attack the insurance company and they get our information, then that's impacting our clients, because if they've got the record and they know who has the insurance and what kind of insurance they have, then they know how to attack the clients. So it's a double-edged sword. Not only is the insurance company getting attacked and getting hit with ransomware and extortion and messing with their systems and upsetting their workforce and work balance, but they're also then have access to their customers' information, so they're going to attack them, and there's going to be claim payments that they're going to have to make. So New York is one of the earlier states that had crackdowns on cyber insurance and cyber coverage and was requiring coverages. And this was from an email that we just got today, actually, about a Citrix vulnerability. And they reminded people that they require the incidents be reported. And somebody asked a question yesterday in a class about, well, do they have to report all the incidents? It depends on the state. Depends if whether there's a threshold or not. So if you're operating in multiple states, there's going to be multiple requirements. They may be required to notify all their clients, send out a letter saying anybody who was impacted by this threat, by this cyber threat, by this ransomware, your data may have been exposed, and they may have to have identity protection coverage. Each state is different. And if payment of extortions, sometimes people say, well, I'm just going to pay this, or they may panic and say, I'm just going to pay this, and not bring in the experts, not bring in their insurance company. And New York is saying, well, you have to report these payments, because they need to keep track of this. They need to know what's going on and helpfully attack the attackers by having more information about where the attacks are coming from, who's instituting them, how much are they looking for? How are they getting into your systems? Because you can't prevent these attacks if you don't know how they're getting into your system, if they don't know who the attackers are. There are multitudes of resources available. There are, cybersecurity for dummies books and different data and different reports from companies that offer cybersecurity or cyber services. We heard from Quest GTS yesterday that offers these type of services. There are a lot of different companies that do this, that have incident responses, can help you recover your data, can help you prevent your loss of data to begin with by instituting the proper protocols and the proper security measures. And as a reminder, please check out our YouTube channel. We have a bunch of our articles and underwriters corners on there. We also we'll have our webinars and our Ed Seminar recordings on there. Our article liability, follow us on LinkedIn. Mary is always putting up new posts and interesting information. We've got a library of articles that is available. Our next webinar is De-Stress for Success, which Mary is going to be presenting next month, helping us become organized and survive during the holiday hectic season. Jan, did you have something you wanted to say? Are there any questions?
Just to throw out, I'll throw out a couple, because I think folks are all wanting to understand, what they can do. I mean, it is a matter of panic. I think it is, I don't know, Sue, if you've got comments, but what should executive teams be doing with their teams in terms of training? And if someone's in a company where they haven't done the homework, how afraid should employees be?
Very afraid. Be very afraid. Because anyone can be attacked. I mean, I'm sure everyone here has received at least one email in the last 24 hours of suspicious. I get them constantly. Xfinity, we need your payment information, or Amazon, or anybody, people that you have regular interactions with. I got an email from an MSO last night from somebody saying, "Oh, this is a encrypted email or something, or this has got important information. Please handle it right away." Well, you just delete it. And if you want to have cyber insurance coverage, more and more companies are requiring that you institute these practices, that you have the training. I mean, I asked a question yesterday, and people said, how many people have received phishing emails from their own company as a test to see if you're going to click on it? Because if you click on that, then the company realizes, well, yes, we need to do more training, because as much as we talk about it, people are still not aware or still vulnerable to it. And I know some very smart people who have gotten taken in by extortion and ransomware, and just those hacks. Oh, we need money, or you need to pay a card, or your IRS taxes haven't been paid, or all those crazy things. And those are small change, obviously, based on that versus an attack that's asking for $1.62 million. But there are lots of things, and companies that offer the cyber insurance coverage, some of them will offer programs as well, because as Steve mentioned yesterday, getting to them fast and being able to respond quickly is going to lessen the chance of damage. And you don't know, once you get that ransomware attack or that extortion request, you don't know how long they've been in your system. You don't know how far it's gone, and what data is gone, and what's been changed, unless you are monitoring this stuff. Does that answer your question? Or
it does. There's a couple other questions. So one, is it worthwhile to price shop for ransomware and cyber coverage? Does it vary that much?
So I think so, yes, because companies are still starting to do this, and more you're seeing mainstream insurers offer the coverage because everybody needs it. And they're not necessarily offering it through themselves. They may be doing it with a reinsurer or another party, but it makes sense to be able to do it along with your property and casualty coverage, because that way you're not having any gaps. If you've got the same company on all those areas, you may have a better chance of a combined response, and not having to worry about dealing with lots of different companies and lots of different entities as to, oh, what do we do now? But preparation is key. You need to know. You can't call a service provider after you have the attack and say, what do I do now? You really need to set up those. It's kind of like disaster preparedness. If you're going to set up those systems ahead of time, so you have somebody to talk to, say, okay, this has happened. What do I do now? And hopefully having those systems and companies that you're working with will help to prevent the attacks in the first place, because you're instituting the proper protections, the proper security protocols.
Yeah, another question, Sue. Are most domestic attacks, are they from, domestic, or are they coming from outside the US?
Both. Russia is a big one. China is a big one. I think the Move It was a Russian one. It's hard because there are so many of them. You go through it and it gets confusing as to where they're from. But yeah, a lot of them are from outside of the United States. But there's bad actors everywhere.
So another question related to this. This is permeated down into a lot of the social media sites too, where the schools are being hit, etc., and it's coming in through the all these Google apps that kids have. They're doing their homework, and then ultimately somehow gets into businesses. It's pretty scary. So.
And it's constant ones, and people are always saying, "Oh, click on this, and you'll get a coupon, you'll get a discount code." No, it's spam. It's malware. It's something else, and not necessarily extortion or ransomware, but it's a cyber issue and a cyber event, and that you may just your data may be encrypted. You may be locked out of your email or locked out of your computer. It's such a wide variety of exposures. It's not just ransomware. And as you said many times, that just because you pay your ransom doesn't mean you're okay. And if you've been attacked once, chances are they're going to come back and attack you again, especially if you don't fix the problem in the first place. So I say, back up. I mean, that just makes sense. If you back everything up and then your system crashes, at least you have the chance of being able to restore it. And don't keep the backups near where the system is. Have them separate, off-site or in the cloud, so that if you have a fire or have a loss at your operation, you're not going to be as heavily impacted. It just kind of makes sense.
Stu, I think that's why many folks, and I'm sure some on this call, have gone to outside management and backup, etc., to protect themselves as best they can, so they can restore what they have.
Devastating. There are companies that don't come back after these.
Yeah.
So your reputation is gone, or
exactly. Well, I think they're doing it online, but then they're getting clever and they're even mailing letters to people, and then they go click on something that was inside a letter. I mean, it's because then they think it's official. So I don't see any more questions, Sue. I just want to say it was a terrific discussion. It's how I felt yesterday, and where we heard a lot yesterday about all the cyber areas, and it's really scary. But it is, as Sue said, people need to really understand it and prepare for it, and employees need to be trained. It just absolutely. So, Sue, that was excellent. And
thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And if you have other topics you'd like to hear, we're always open to presentations, even on things we don't know much about.